Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3, 3, 3, 3. There were four best friends. Their trip bounded them for life. They were four brothers. That's a haiku that represents the movie that we're about to talk about. My name is Zoe. It's spelled Z-O or Z to the O for those of you outside of the U.S. Thanks for joining or streaming. We really appreciate it. It's the 136th episode of Backlit Cinema, the podcast. And we watched the movies of yesteryear that we loved from the latter half of the 1900s. If you like what you're about to hear, tell your family, tell your friends, and tell that young men, all of those young men embarking on their coming of age journey about Backlit Cinema, the podcast. And for you, my friends, I have a very special guest. I invited him on because we are very similar. We're both a little thick around the middle. That is to say, we are both well-fed men. We both love movies. We watch some of the classics, some of the newer things. We can't get enough of this stuff. And we both started a podcast so that we can talk about our love of film. Ladies and gentlemen, gender non-conforming, everyone from around the world, may I present to you Andy Heller from Fat Dudes Dig Flicks.
Hey, all right. How's it going?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I am doing really well. Really, really well. I'm excited to be here. I think this will be a ton of fun today.
Yeah. I'm glad you can join us, and I'm really excited to have you here. I've been listening to your shows, and I'm like, yeah, this guy's a lot like me. He should be on the show.
I like that. That's one of the things I really love about like listening to podcasts is you're kind of like, there is another person out there in the world who is like me. This is so great. How do I talk to them?
Right, absolutely. And with today's technology, it's easier and easier to connect with people, like people across the world, people that you never thought you'd talk to, or people that you never thought you'd have something in common with. So that's what I enjoy about living in today's world. Now, obviously, there's a lot of negatives that comes with all of that. But
it's true.
At this time, I want to accentuate the positives.
That's right. I choose to live positively in this moment.
Right, absolutely. So, as I mentioned, you have it's a podcast. Like when people look it up, it'll be called Fat Dudes Digs Flicks, but it's actually a whole network of podcasts. So that is fascinating. Does it ever get confusing when you have like a bunch of shows that you have to juggle?
So what I've come to find is that if I don't have a running schedule of like what, like not just on a calendar, like I need a notepad where I can look at it and go, okay, so I am recording an episode today. What episode is this? Is this for just me? Am I interviewing somebody? Oh no, I'm hanging out with my friends. Okay, so my friends and I are hanging out. What podcast are we doing? Are we talking about like an art movie, or are we talking about something fun? And it's just it gets to be like, you know, if I didn't have it written down, I would have no idea what I'm doing.
Right.
And you know, I like I'm super happy to be doing all of these, but yeah, it gets to be confusing.
I can imagine. Now, all of these are on your network. You have Let's Talk About. I think of the podcast, those are the ones that I most listen to. So, and Let's Talk About what's going on in that show.
Yeah. So for a long time, what I would do is I would just kind of sit in my car after I watched a movie, like went to the theater, and would have just 20 minutes of me talking to myself about the movie I just watched. And I enjoyed that. That was fun. But I did a mini series when the Rise of Skywalker came out, where I would meet with a guest and we would talk about like our love for the Star Wars movies, movie by movie. And I came to find that I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, it's a lot more fun to talk to other people than it is to just sit and talk to myself for 30 minutes. So I decided that what I wanted to do was just have people on, have a conversation with them about their lives, who they are, where they came from, maybe how they started to love movies, maybe how loving movies kind of like pointed them in a particular direction in their life. And then we would talk about the movie that had, either had some kind of impact on them or had just a movie that they loved. And the thing that really brings us together is just that love of movies, like just that joy. Even if a movie that they choose isn't one of my favorites, you really find out a lot about a person by seeing how excited they get to talk about a particular movie. And so it's just been great. So yeah, Let's Talk About is just, I like to call it a chat show where we talk about their life, their loves, and a movie that has made a difference in their path, I guess.
Right. Yeah, that's great. I try to incorporate some of that on this show. And for the listeners out there, it's Let's Talk About, taco being spelled TACO, because it's a fat dude's podcast, you understand? And so you have to have a pun, and let's talk about.
Yeah. And so like I when I rate movies on social media, instead of using like stars or thumbs up, I rate my movies using the taco scale. So it's like, 1 to 5 tacos, and if a movie is like really superior, then it gets a golden avocado, because you can't have a good taco without some guac. So
all right. Well, let's talk about a couple of movies that just recently came out that you may have seen. Did you get to see Godzilla -1?
So I'm going to be really bad about this. A lot of the newer ones, I have had it like written down, and I've been like, okay, so I'm going to use today to do like a double feature, and I'm going to go see it. Godzilla Kong is one that I have missed. It is on my list, and hopefully I'll watch it within like the next week or so.
Right.
But yeah, I'm a big letdown, I think, when it comes to newer movies. I've seen a couple. Like there are a couple of new releases that I was able to make it out to see, but like the two biggest, I think, the Godzilla and Ghostbusters, I am behind. So
right.
I gotta play catch up.
Actually, since you're planning on watching them and you hadn't seen it yet, I would encourage you to watch Godzilla X Kong and then watch Godzilla -1, because Godzilla -1 is it's like they're two different movies for one thing.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is that Godzilla -1 is so much better than it has a completely different subject matter and message than Godzilla X Kong, which is basically just WWE except with big monsters. And and I love the WWE. They're both great movies to watch, but Godzilla -1 is definitely on another level. How about this?
That one's fantastic. Godzilla -1 is just superb.
Have you seen The Beekeeper?
No. So I saw that it was on VOD and it was on sale like a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I should just buy it. Because I know I want to watch it, and I missed it. So I have not seen The Beekeeper yet either. I love Jason Statham when he's kind of the focus of the movie.
Right. When
he's in an ensemble, I kind of am like, oh, he just kind of, I don't know, he just kind of meshes with the story too much. But when he is the driving force, like the Transporter movies were a ton of fun. Crank is bonkers. Like Crank is just bonkers couple of movies. But The Beekeeper, I'm really looking forward to see, to just have him drive the movie again.
Yeah, he's definitely the most Statham version of Statham that you've ever seen in The Beekeeper.
I'm very excited for that one.
All right, well let's move back to the recent past. There was a movie that I watched that I was amused by. It's called Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yes.
So how many tacos is that one?
That one actually. So I am very difficult, like very picky, I guess. Like when movies come out right away, I'm like, I can't give this a golden avocado right off the bat. Like it just doesn't seem fair. There's this huge history of movies. I can't do it. Well, now that I've watched Everything Everywhere All at Once multiple times, yeah, it's a golden avocado for me. I love that movie so much. I love it is a dense movie that is doing a lot and saying a lot and utilizing a whole bunch of different like cinematic styles, cinematic genres, to tell what is basically just the story of like family acceptance. Like,
Right.
how do you open your arms to your children, to your partner, to your like family lineage? Like, that's what the movie is all about. But yet it goes to like multi dimensions, and it's just I'm amazed by that movie. So I loved Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah, I do too. It blew me away. It was way more than what I had ever expected it to. It was like, oh my God, this is strange. It's wonderful. It's a beautiful movie. So yeah, and here's the thing. There are two types of people who give out scores, because I don't typically give out scores. I just like to talk about if I like it or if I didn't like it, or if there whatever issues I might have had with it, or the greatest points of a particular movie. But I noticed that when people do give out scores, it's like it's mostly people don't like to give out high scores. It's like they're hesitant because they want to reserve like the highest score, like the peakest of the peak thing that they think that they're ever going to see in their whole life. And it's like they want to say that it wants to be the movie that competes with every movie that's ever been made, or something of that nature. So if they haven't, but I feel like I'm never going to watch all of those movies. It's like there's not enough time. It's like if I just sat there and somebody glued my eyes open, I would just sat there and watch movies for 24/7 and never slept. I still wouldn't get through it. So my philosophy is, don't be stingy. Just if you see something that's a 10 out of 10, just give it a 10 out of 10. And people might disagree with you or whatever, but I feel like there are some people that are far too stingy with how they give out stars and tacos and whatnot.
It's the stupidest, most arbitrary thing. But in my head, I'm just like, well, I gotta see it again. Like, I have to. I can't just know right away that it's perfect.
Right.
I gotta watch it one more time. No, if I love a movie, like, I'm gonna love the movie, and I should just be like, this is a 5 taco movie right off the bat.
Right. Let's go on to your other shows. You also have the Criterion Break.
Yeah, so the Criterion Break, I am actually, I co-host that with two of my closest friends, Blake Yennison and Derek Vierink, and we all are just like, we're big box office movie fans, but we're also art house cinema fans. We love indies, international films, documentaries, things like that, and we love the Criterion Collection label. We just celebrate that physical media label. So we've got a show where we just kind of take some time to look at movies in the collection that maybe we've wanted to watch for a while or haven't had a chance to, or if there's something like really cool that comes to the Criterion channel, the streaming service, we'll take an episode and just kind of go through stuff like that. But it's kind of an opportunity for us to take a break from the mainstream and watch some things that are a little, sometimes a little weird, sometimes a little, I would say, I don't want to use the word boring, but like drier maybe is a better word to use. But because we enjoy that, we find the rewards in watching some of those movies that, might move at a little bit of a slower pace, might be a little more, highfalutin in the message that they're trying to tell. But yeah, it's a chance for us to just really like kick back and chat. 3 friends just hanging out watching artsy movies.
Right. I understand totally. And finally, you have the balcony. I kind of figured what the Criterion Break was all about, because I've connected with a lot of creators who favor movies that are featured on Criterion, or that have been released on Criterion, what do you call it, Blu-rays, or the 4K, or the what do you call them, the metal, the tin box, the special editions.
Steel books.
Yeah, the steel books. Right. But the balcony is something different. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so the balcony kind of came out of it's the same group of friends, myself, Blake, and Derek. Hold on, I've got a cat here who is messing with stuff. It's the same 3 group of friends and we are, instead of talking about the Criterion Collection, we kind of talk about whatever other movies that we want to have to discuss. So it's just kind of an opportunity to, like, you know, let's say we want to talk, like Ridley Scott has Gladiator 2 coming out later this year. And what if we want to talk about Ridley Scott movies? So it's like something where we can just kind of have this extra time to talk about things that don't fall in the Criterion break window or in the Let's Talk About, because it's the three of us just chatting about whatever movies we want to chat about.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. It's interesting. I did something similar in talking about a movie that that's going to be related to a brand new release. So you guys talked about Ridley Scott movies because of Gladiator 2. I just recorded a podcast by myself on The Wizard of Oz, the original one from 1939, because it used to come on all the time when I was growing up. So it's far earlier than most of the movies that I tend to talk about on my show. But the thing that's unique about this movie, well, it's not unique about this movie, but it's important for me to talk about because it used to come on all the time and I used to watch it all of the time.
And it felt like every year they played that on like CBS or something.
Right.
And, you know, 4 or 5 years old, and that was one of my earliest like TV watching memories, was getting around the TV to watch that almost every year. So yeah, I get it.
Absolutely. And that the balcony and the criteria are similar, but the balcony is like just whatever is out. It's like the Criterion break and then everything else. Okay, that sounds awesome. So
the one thing that's really nice about the balcony too is like because I feel so busy, sometimes that's the one that I can kind of sit out, and Blake and Derek just kind of take the reins, and I'm like, I'm just going to stay in the background on this one, and you know, maybe chime in a little bit or not. I'll just sit quietly.
Right. So for people who want to find Fat Dudes Digs Flicks, tell them where they can find you.
Yeah, so if you want to subscribe to the podcast, you can pretty much find me anywhere you get your podcast: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music. Just do a search for Fat Dude Digs Flicks, and you'll find the podcast there. But you can also find me on social media. On Instagram, it is Fat Dude Digs Flicks. On Twitter, because that's what I'm still going to call it, it's Fat Dude Flicks. And then I also use Letterboxd a lot. I love Letterboxd, and it's also Fat Dude Flicks there. Those are the best places to find me, I would say.
Okay, that's awesome. And here's the thing. I've heard about Letterboxd. A lot of people talk about Letterboxd, but I shall not be tempted.
Oh man, you are a strong soul for avoiding that one.
There are so many social medias that I'm trying to keep up with, and some of them I don't really keep up with as much anymore because there's not as much engagement, and it's like because I've had a Mastodon account for a while. But there's just not a lot of back and forth on Mastodon. So it's like screaming into an empty room and there's like nobody responds. So like every once in a while you get some engagement, but it's like most of the time there's nothing going on there. And then even Threads for a long time, that there wasn't a lot of, you know, a back and forth on Threads. But now in the recent couple of months, there's a lot of activity on Threads. So I get some satisfaction from posting on Threads. So that's
Blue Sky is one for me that's kind of like, what am I doing here?
Yeah, I have one of those too. I have a Blue Sky, and Blue Sky is kind of messed up because you can't put video on Blue Sky. So it's like, come on, what are you guys doing? I know that you're building slowly, but it's ruining my style, man. Because it's I'm not even trying to put like a long video, just a short, just a 1 minute video. But so far, I feel like I'm locked out. But you know, you just got to roll with what you can. You just got to roll with what you can.
Definitely.
All right. Well, thanks for the wonderful engagement that we're having right now, and we're going to shift over to our next segment, the opening credits. So, Andy, if you could tell the audience the movie that we watched and if they hadn't already guessed from my cryptic haiku, and a little bit about the movie.
Yeah. So we are watching, or we have watched the 1986 film Stand By Me, and a little description as to what the movie is about. Gordy, Chris, Teddy, and Vern are four friends who go out on a journey for fame and glory. In their journey, they tease, they fight, and they support one another as boys growing into men do. They stand by each other as they encounter threats, hardship, and danger. They have a revelation that the expedition is more than just a trip to find a dead body. It's a voyage in self-discovery.
Ah, yes, that's definitely the movie I watched.
Movie... Yeah. I would say that's about it.
Yeah. This movie was released August 22nd, 1986, produced by Columbia Pictures, Act 3 and Act 3 Communications. It grossed over $52 million in the US and Canada on a reported budget of $8 million. So if we adjust that for inflation, as I like to do with these old movies, you'll find that it grossed over $147 million in the US and Canada on a $22 million budget. So that's pretty healthy profit right there. That's pretty healthy. Yeah. It's like, it's this movie. This movie is well liked, and it's reflected in the box office. Mm-hmm. So, moving right along, let's talk about, no pun intended, the actors who starred in this movie.
Yeah, so leading this cast is, he's kind of now known as like the nerd king. This is Will Wheaton. Will Wheaton plays Gordy LeChance. Will Wheaton was also one of the voices in The Secret of NIMH. He was in Toy Soldiers, and he is probably best known for his roles in Star Trek The Next Generation, including the movie Star Trek Nemesis.
Yes, absolutely. I remember being introduced to Will Wheaton and Stand By Me. He gave a powerful performance. And so when Star Trek The Next Generation premiered, I was like, oh, there's another reason to watch this show. I mean, I was already a Star Trek fan. There was no way that I was not going to watch it. So having Will Wheaton as somebody that I could relate to, somebody that was the same age as me, somebody who's considered smart, that was like a bonus. It's funny, right? Because there are a lot of people that had who were uncomfortable, I guess, with a child being on the bridge, but I was like, no, go for it. I like this.
We need that. We need a kid. Show them that there's a kid that can do this too.
Right. Up next is River Phoenix. He played Chris Chambers. You may have seen him in My Own Private Idaho, The Mosquito Coast, and Running on Empty. I hadn't seen any of those movies. I've only seen a snippet of River Phoenix outside of this movie, and that was when he was in the Indiana Jones, and I want to say it's the last one, the search, not the last of the original ones that came out in the 80s. The temple? No, it's not a temple. It's that's
The Last Crusade.
The Last Crusade. Thank you. I was fumbling the ball over there. So the Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade, he played a young Indiana Jones, and we find out why Indiana Jones is afraid of snakes. He was awesome in that one little snippet that we saw him.
It's great though. It's great. Next is Corey Feldman from the famous 1980s Corys. Corey Feldman plays Teddy Duchamp. He was also in The Last Boys, The Goonies, and the voice of Donatello in both the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3. You know,
I for some reason that missed me. I didn't realize he was one of the voices of the Turtles.
Right. I remember back at that time, I was super excited because I was I've always been a big Goonies fan.
Right.
And when I heard his voice, I was like, oh my gosh, it's a mouse.
Right. And his voice is so distinctive too, which is why I'm weirded out that I didn't know it was him. Or maybe I knew and I forgot because I saw all three of those movies. And you
may have known and just been like, I don't want to acknowledge this.
No, I'm just getting old and stuff falls out. I'm like Sam Beckett now, and I have a Swiss cheese memory. So that's the way it works now. Up next is Jerry O'Connell. He plays Vern Tesso. He's also been in Kangaroo Jack, Scream 2, and Jerry Maguire. I covered Jerry Maguire on episode 120, and like as I watched the movie, I forgot that he was in it. And
sure.
Yeah, he was. I know him best though from a TV show called Sliders. I don't know if you remember that one.
Yeah,
there are Sliders.
Yeah, the time traveling one.
Yes, yeah. No, not time travel. It was dimension hopping.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yep. Gotcha.
Yeah, they would slide between different dimensions, kind of like Sam Beckett trying to find their way home. And I really liked that show, at least up until they replaced most of the cast, the same way they replaced the first season actors of the Power Rangers, like kind of like one at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the next actor?
So next is Kiefer Sutherland. Kiefer Sutherland plays Ace Merrill. Kiefer Sutherland was also in Young Guns, which you covered on your episode 26. He is the voice of the villain in Phone Booth, and he is in Flatliners. Kiefer Sutherland rules. Yes,
absolutely. He's had an illustrious career. I feel seamlessly transferred from the movies to television. And I feel like he transferred at that time when it was still seen as a hierarchy for either you're a movie actor or you're a television actor. And a lot of times it was seen like when a person would transfer from being in the movies to television, they would say, well, the actor is downgraded. But I don't feel that way with Kiefer Sutherland. I think that he was one of the actors that kind of said, we can do both. We can do both television and movies, and we can still maintain our prestige, right? So he was great in the shows that he's been on. He's got this thing right now called the Trial of the Kane something. It's based on the Kane Mutiny, and I'm not exactly sure if it's the same story or if they're just doing the trial. So I really want to watch that one.
Yeah, I want to check that one out too. He's much like his father. Like he's somebody that when he pops up in a movie, like the rest of the movie can be bad, but once I see him, I'm like, I know that his scenes are going to be in good hands.
Yeah.
Because I just enjoy his presence so much.
Yeah, he has great presence.
Yeah.
Up next is, and I did not practice his name, so it's going to come out funky, Casey Simasco. Oh, I think I got it. He played Billy Tessio. What were you saying?
Yeah, I think you got it. I think you nailed it.
Thanks. Especially without practice. You may have seen him on Young Guns, Back to the Future. We covered on episode 132, and Public Enemies. Some reason, can't remember when I ever see him, whenever I see him. but he's had a great career, but he has a face that blends in, I feel.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I actually really like him. He was in a comedy called, I think it was 3 O'Clock High, kind of around the same time as this movie, where he plays like a nerdy kid at a school, and the new kid is like this bully who was in juvenile detention, and they get into like a little squabble, and then the bully's like, I'm gonna beat you up after school, and so the whole movie is him dreading like when the bell rings at the end of the day. It is great, like a great piece of 80s cinema. So I like him a lot.
Right.
Next on the cast list is Gary Riley. Gary Riley plays Charlie Hogan. Gary was also in Ruthless People, Summer School, and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. And going by name, I couldn't tell you who.
But he's been in some fabulous movies.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely.
Up next is Jason Oliver Lipset. He plays Vince Desjardins, another difficult name. You may have known him from The Wizard, Class of 1999, or Uncaged. And I don't remember his face, but I'm 90% sure that if he was in The Wizard, then he played one of the bullies.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that seems on brand.
Right.
Next is Marshall Bell. He plays Mr. LeChance. He was in Starship Troopers, which was covered in your episode 77. He's also in Total Recall and Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead. In Total Recall, he is the guy who I believe rips open or reveals his stomach and has the alien creature that's like part of him.
Right.
It's hard to get that image out of my head, but
he plays a guy
great,
that
character actor.
Right, he plays a guy that has Quato. He is. It's funny, right? Because he's a mutant, and they said, "Where are you, Quato?" He says, "I'm not Quato. Don't be ridiculous. Quato's a mutant." And then he opens up his stomach, and then Quato comes. It's like, no, you're the mutant too. You can't just say that Quato's a mutant. You are also a mutant. And the funny thing is, as I was watching Stand By Me, I hadn't watched it in a long time, so I'm watching it, and then Mr. LeChance comes up, and I was like, I know that dude. I've seen him before, and it was bothering me for a long time. And it took me a while to remember that he was in Starship Troopers and in Total Recall. And then I remember in Starship Troopers that he was the general who had lost his mind, basically. It's like he was put in a situation that he was not prepared for, and I don't know. Did they have to slap him or shoot him? I can't remember. But I
don't remember.
Yeah, he was a problem.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. Up next is Frances Lee McCain. She played Mrs. LeChance. She's also been in Back to the Future, Gremlins, that are covered in episode 8, and Footloose. You know what's interesting is that for some reason, with the actors and the people who have appeared or were involved in the making of them in this movie, there are a lot of episodes that they've been in and they've been involved in of this podcast that I've covered. And it's like, I've mentioned some of the shows that they've been in this, where we're talking about the actors. And then when I started getting into the directors and the writers, I was like, oh, I'm not going to put all my shows on all of these notations. I gotta slow down. I'm gonna slow down the flow of the show. But yeah, she was in Gremlins. I remember her. She was the mom. She was the one to microwave the gremlin, and that was glorious.
It was a great moment.
Right.
Next is Richard Dreyfuss. He plays the author, or the elder version of Gordy LeChance. He was also in Jaws, which was covered in your episode 111. He's in The Goodbye Girl and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which you covered in episode 56. Richard Dreyfuss, especially Richard Dreyfuss in the 70s and 80s, is kind of like acting royalty to me. Like he was just one of the guys that I always enjoyed seeing in things, especially at that time.
Yeah, definitely. He's been in a lot of great movies. And one of the things that's interesting is that now we have Will Wheaton, who is even older than Richard Dreyfuss was when Richard Dreyfuss was doing this role. So I thought it'd be interesting. It's like, what would the movie look like if we shot this movie using Will Wheaton as the narrator and as the writer on the bookends of this movie? That would be interesting. Now, also, some people would say that it's sacrilegious, but I don't know. I still want to see it.
Yeah. I would definitely be interested in seeing it because, for me, there's the idea of the memories that Will Wheaton would have during the filming of this movie and kind of the impact that had on him as a person. So kind of seeing that reflected. So of course he'd be acting about these characters and everything, but so much time has passed, and I'm sure he still holds high esteem for his time of working with River Phoenix, working with Corey Feldman and Jerry O'Connell. So I feel like there would be this really nice element that would be added to the movie if they would go back and just kind of, even if it's just for fun or for some charity project, it would be cool to just do that, because I think it would be interesting to see how he plays those scenes. So I'm with you. I'm totally with you on this.
Also, what's also remarkable is that how youthful he still appears. We're about the same age, in our 50s.
Yeah.
And he's such a youthful looking person, and his voice really hasn't changed that much, right? So that would be a really interesting experiment.
Man, some people age really well.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the last featured cast member is John Cusack. John Cusack plays Denny LaChance. Cusack, of course, in the great movies Gross Point Blank, High Fidelity, and Say Anything.
Yeah, he's had a stellar career. Just a lot of great movies, especially in the 80s and 90s, especially the 90s. I think the 90s was his decade where he was just there, being in all the movies. He's been in a lot of action movies, just doing some amazing work.
Yeah, I was a huge John Cusack fan for a long time. Just found him to be like such a fun presence, a fun character actor, it feels like there's so much of his personality that he puts into the roles that he plays. I just a blast watching him. I still really enjoy watching John Cusack's movies.
Yeah, absolutely. And he had such a small part in this movie, but him, just like a lot of the other actors that were in this movie, they've had fantastic careers, right? Even the ones whose names that we don't recognize, still great careers, right?
Oh yeah.
They've been in some really great movies. Cause like sometimes I do this podcast and there are actors that like their names, not only do I not recognize, but when you check to see what they've been able to accomplish on IMDb, it's like very little. Either they're retired early or they've, chosen to go in a different career path, or they had a bad experience at the studios, or what have you. It's like you just don't see much of them, or they end up playing like really small bit parts in movies and stuff. So the results of the people, what they've been able to accomplish after this movie is amazing. And one of my favorite movies that John Cusack was in is called Better Off Dead. And that's just a delight. Yes.
Oh, so good. So good.
So let's move on to talk about the director.
Yeah. So Stand By Me was directed by Rob Reiner. Rob Reiner, whose famous father, Carl Reiner, was a big-time comedy writer and director. And Rob Reiner, in his early career, kind of followed that path with things like This Is Spinal Tap and When Harry Met Sally. But then he also went on to direct things like A Few Good Men, The American President, Ghosts of Mississippi, The Bucket List, and LBJ.
Yeah, he's directed a lot of heavy stuff. And when you think about it, even though he kind of started his career in comedy, like he started off in Archie Bunker. That was one of his earliest roles.
Yeah.
He really, even in that role, he was tackling some heavy subjects. Like he was the liberal to Archie Bunker's conservative. So he was really, with the show in general, but him in particular as a character, really, tackled some really heavy subjects, and then he kind of carried that into a lot of the filmography that he's done. So that's and he's just both eclectic and incredibly well versed in the movie making scheme that he does.
Another movie he's directed, The Princess Bride. I mean, this guy is just like, I feel like we do not give him enough credit as a filmmaker as he deserves, because man, some of these movies, especially like we've been saying a lot, especially in the 80s and 90s, just hit after hit after hit. So very, very talented writer, director, actor, Rob Reiner.
Just his ability to flow from one genre to the next is amazing. So it's like it's hard to be disappointed when you go and watch a Rob Reiner film.
Yep, definitely.
So up next, we're going to talk about the writers. This was written by Stephen King, Reynold Gideon, and Bruce A. Evans. King, of course, wrote the novella The Body that this movie is based on. He also wrote Maximum Overdrive. I don't know if that's based on a book, but it's definitely a movie that he wanted to direct. And after that experience, he has not directed anything else. He also did Creepshow that I kind of liked. And he's also, I think he wrote the screenplay for the Shawshank Redemption, although I can't remember. But yeah, he's prolific. Most of the most of the movies that are adapted from his books make great movies, and even when they're not that good, they're better than most. Like they did the Dark Tower, and they did the Dark Tower dirty. Like they did it wrong. It's like, okay, we're gonna make this a straight 2 hour movie with no sequels, and we're not trying to tell a larger story or nothing. It was like, man, y'all did them dirty, because it's such a it's such a good story that when done properly, it could be amazing. And I think they did have ambitions for this being like gigantic. It was going to be like a TV show with it was going to be a movie with a TV show tie-in, but and then they scaled back their plans and just made this 1 2 hour movie, and that didn't have enough resemblance to the books, but I still liked it. I especially liked the special effect of Roland Deschain when he was like reloading his weapons and whatnot. He's like a gunman with superpowers, it seems.
Yeah.
It's like, what's your superpowers? Well, I never miss, and I can reload my revolvers really, really fast.
It's a good power to have.
Yeah,
I would say.
It's a good. If you're a gunfighter, I think that's a good power to have. There's something that's coming out that's being adapted, like right now. I can't remember what it is, but it's either a TV show or a movie, but I can't think of it. I know that he just came out with a new book called Holly, and it's based on a character from a book he wrote called Mr. Mercedes. So it's something like a sequel. So I read Mr. Mercedes, and there's a Mr. Mercedes TV show that I hadn't gotten into, but I'd really like to try that.
Yeah. And just like when I think of authors that I've enjoyed over the course of my life, like Stephen King is just right up at the top. Like I read It and The Stand when I was probably way too young to read and appreciate those, but I still really enjoyed them. I just think that a lot of the darker themes probably didn't quite hit as well as they would have, if I had read them as an adult instead of as an elementary school kid. But yeah, they were just they've kind of like become the cornerstone of the things that I enjoy and appreciate. So big time Stephen King fan over here.
I think most of us who read It, read them when we were way too young. And that's the glorious thing about novels, is that you can do that. It's like they let you do that. They let you read novels that where you're way too young to read. Right? And then with Stephen King in particular, like he had some like gross imagery. It's like it's both a lot of gross sexual imagery, a lot of gross just blood and guts imagery. Just he went for it. He did it. And a lot of his early novels, he was high out of his mind, so he has no memory of writing them.
Right.
So the other two writers that are credited for this film are Gideon and Evans. They're kind of a writing team. At least they are a writing team on movies like Starman, Mr. Brooks, and the often world-renowned Cutthroat Island. Kids, if you don't know what Cutthroat Island is, you don't want to know. And you know what? I don't even think it's their fault that the movie turned out the way it did. I don't think it's them. But it didn't turn out well.
Everybody sure wanted it to. Man, I remember them hyping that movie up, and then like I think it finally hit theaters, and critics and audiences alike were both like, what happened here?
Yeah. More like, what is this crap? I was like,
exactly.
All right, let us know who was the composer for this one.
Sure. So the composer of this, this looks like it would be an easier name to pronounce, but I'm still going to screw it up. Jack Nitzsche. Looks like, could be Nietzsche, but I'm going to say Nietzsche. And he wrote the scores to An Officer and a Gentleman, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Breathless, 9.5 weeks, The Seventh Sign, and Next of Kin. So a very notable composer in the late 70s, early 80s, with a lot of adult dramas. So I mean, this is kind of I think the guy you would go to at this time for these kind of movies. I think things that carry the theme that a Stand By Me would. I think they kind of go went with the right guy. It's tough in this movie though for me because as when the score is in the movie, it of course feels very fitting. It feels like it fits. But for me, this movie is like all 50s, 60s, like pop, pop music, rock music from that era. Hearing Buddy Holly and the Coasters and Benny King, like that's the music that I associate with this movie. So I almost feel bad for him because it's like, oh, he made this great score, but all the people are going to talk about it's like, oh man, we get to hear Lollipop.
right. That is correct. Like the thing that it opens with Stand By Me by Benny King, and it closes with that one. And the other thing is that he basically incorporated Stand By Me into the composition of what he wrote for the movie. So, and that was a beautiful thing that he did. So I think that if he's noted for anything, he could be noted for that. And and in An Officer and a Gentleman, he kind of did the same thing with Lift Us Up Where We Belong. Is that the name of that song?
Yeah.
That was I covered that in one of the episodes, and that was a trial to get that song in the movie. And so I think that that's one of his skills, is the ability to seamlessly incorporate popular music into the composition of the the background music of the movie. And I think you pronounced his name beautifully. I'm glad you tackled it. You did it with gusto, and I think you did excellent work there.
I think that's the thing to do. Is even if you don't think you can do it, just read it with enthusiasm, so it sounds like you might have it correct.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, like when you approach it with a lack of confidence, then people will think, "Oh, that's got to be the wrong way."
He has no idea what he's talking about.
Right, and yeah, I say with confidence things that where I have no idea what I'm talking about. So that's it for the opening credits. I don't really have any announcements other than I'm going to try to focus on a newsletter. We'll see how that turns out. There hasn't been a newsletter in a couple of months, so I know I need to ramp that up. I need to in my inbox I get newsletters from a couple of different podcasts, and I am impressed that they're able to keep up that level of consistency with the newsletter, and I feel like I need to crank it up a little bit. So I'm going to focus on doing that. So that's it for that segment, and we're going to go to our next segment, the top 5 favorite parts. So I should have prepped you for this, and I always forget. But we're going to talk about our top 5 favorite parts of the movie. So if you can kind of think of any of your favorite parts that kind of come into your head, we're going to do 5 of those. We want to talk about what impressed us about this movie, the things that we remember about this movie, the things that stick with us. And when we watch this movie, we go home. These are the parts that we talk about on the way home from the movie theater after we finish watching it.
Yeah. I think this movie is filled with really memorable sequences. And like watching it again for the first time in a very long time, like there were little moments that really stand out as something super memorable. So I think I'll start with the one that, like, this is the scene that for me has kind of haunted me for the last 37 years. And that would be the leeches scene.
I'm going to say that's one of mine. Carry on, sir. Carry on.
So, like, the group have almost gotten to their destination, and they have like a little body of water to cross, and they swim through it, and then they notice that they are covered in leeches.
Right,
And so
right.
they get to the other side and start like pulling these leeches off of their skin, like taking their shirts off so they can get them, getting them off of everyone else, and then they finally are like clean of leeches. And then Gordy notices that something doesn't quite feel right, and he goes and pulls out of his underpants a leech that was attached to him. His hand is covered in blood, and he drops the leech and passes out. As a young man, and as an adult man, mortified by this.
Yeah.
Like, I understand that leeches can be a helpful healing thing with blood work, but no, I don't ever want to experience what these kids did in that situation.
Yeah, I desperately don't want to encounter leeches where, like in nature, right? In general, I don't. Right. It's like the leeches are always horrifying, no matter what movie that you put them in. The only other movie that I can remember offhand where I was mortified by the leeches is Rambo: First Blood Part 2, when he was being tortured, and they lowered him into this tank of water, and they pull him out, and he's covered with leeches, and I'm like, oh, it's always that reaction.
And that was like the year before. I think 1985 is when that one came out. So it's like that was not a good year for anybody with a fear of leeches. Like that 85, 86 like combo. No, thank you.
Yeah. Also, leeches are a lot like quicksand. You think you're going to encounter them everywhere, right? It's like you think every patch of ground when you're growing up is potential quicksand territory. Somehow, we were terrified of quicksand when we was growing up.
Yeah, and I've done a really good job of avoiding quicksand in my life.
Yeah.
So these stories got it wrong.
Yeah, quicksand and leeches. I'm gonna transition to one of my favorite parts. Like you said, there are a lot of the great parts are really small moments that kind of stand out. And mine is the Pinky Swear. And the reason that kind of stands out, because I remember doing this a lot when I was a kid. It's like when you see that, it's like you see yourself in the movie. It's like, oh, they're doing the Pinky Swear just like I do, right? So. And it really shows the bond between the two characters. It shows the bond between LeChance and Chambers, and I really like that. And it was really cool part. I really like that.
Their friendship is really great. Like, I get that all four of these kids are friends and they all get along, but you get to the end of the movie and you kind of talk about the Vern and Teddy kind of go off their own way. But yet Chris and Gordy stay friends for a little bit longer. And you can kind of tell, like, over the course of the movie, like, these two kids really see eye to eye. Like, they really get each other, and they have a very, very tight bond. And I think that's just really, I don't know, I think that's really nice. I think movies that focus on male friendships are really important because I feel like, like tender male friendships, because you can watch something like The Hangover and those guys are friends, they get along and they poke and prod at each other, but there's something about like dipping below that like surface and you really getting to see these guys connect that I think is really important. So yeah, I love that bond between those two guys. I think that's a great thing to point out.
And also that they trusted each other, they loved each other, and the thing where they were able to be vulnerable with each other, and with just those two, in a way they wouldn't want to be vulnerable with the other two members of their troop. And I also feel like it was Gordy who basically lifted Chris up, because Chris didn't believe that he could ever do something like seek higher education. He thought that he was just going to be doing shop and maybe do like manual labor type of work. But as it turns out, he grows up to be a lawyer. And this is because Gordy helped Chris to believe in himself that he could do something like that. Like Gordy saw that in him in a way Chris couldn't see it in himself. And I think that's like a wonderful quality that Gordy has, and that's kind of like bond. That was one of the things that bonded them together.
Yeah. Oh, good stuff. The next one for me is it's kind of it's another kind of little moment, but it kind of sets the whole thing for one of the characters. So when I was little, the character that I of course related with was Vern. I mean, he's the fat kid, but when you watch the movie now and you look at him, you're like, he's not really that
right.
fat. Like, he's not. Why is this kid the fat kid? Like, he's not fat at all. I think because I focused so much on that when I was younger that I missed little details of other characters. So for me, the scene that really stood out this time is when Teddy is playing chicken with the train. That scene is doing a lot of heavy lifting on who Teddy is. Because as the movie goes on, you learn that Teddy has had a hard life, that his father is a war vet and he's kind of returned and is dealing with PTSD, and that has certainly affected who Teddy is as a person. And he has this kind of like self-destructive streak to him. And you kind of get a chance to taste that just a little bit. Like, but he's in the mix with these kids who see him as a human being. So we don't really get to see this other side of him until he plays chicken with the train. And it's kind of like, he just wants to do it. And like, sure, you imagine that, yes, he would jump at the end, but we're not going to get that chance because the friends don't want anything bad to happen to him. And then we learn later on in life that the cycle of like kind of self-destructive behavior has led Teddy to be the one who's imprisoned from the group. Like, he's the one that gets into difficult living and just, I think there's a part where it says that he was finally released from prison, and it kind of talks about that things may have turned around for him. But I feel like this is a path that, in a very subtle way, the movie kind of conveys that maybe Teddy is going to have some problems as he grows up. So I there's another train scene, of course, that is much more well known and higher regarded. But watching it this time around, there's something about that first one that I was like, oh, there's a lot going on here that I don't think we really give the movie its due credit for.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I watched this time, this is the first time I ever noticed that he does have like where his ear is damaged. Like, you can see where his father where his father burned him on the stove, and his ear is all like messed up. And that's the first time I noticed it when I watched this movie. And how it's like the other part where you know that he's kind of messed up is when Gordy is telling the story about the fat kid. And then after he finishes the story, what's his name? What you call it? I forgot his name already. Teddy was like, what else happened? What else happened? And Gordy was like, that's it. He's like, no, I mean, he should have went home and killed his father, right?
Yeah. Like, what? Man.
That is so kind of like out of left field, and it kind of shows you where his mind is. And he loves his father, but he would kill his father if given the chance, it seems, because his father is abusive. And at the same time, he loves his father because it's like this dude was making fun of his father. But the proudest thing that he would say about his father is that his father stormed the beaches of Normandy. And that's like one of the most important things in his life. And this dude is like making fun of that. And it's not something that Teddy could take. So his character is really complex, and and it's played well. It's played extremely well. Like I bought it. I believed it all the time.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, because I feel like we knew those kids. Like, you would have the kids that were kind of like a little punky, just kind of like a little bit on the brat or jerk side, but like they were loyal to their friend. And like, so if you were friends with that kid who was kind of a jerk, there was still, it was like, you knew, like, didn't you know, no, this is I'm just gonna keep like kind of talking back on myself here. But like, you didn't super know, but you just had a feeling that there was something a little amiss going on when you weren't around your friend, and it kind of bled over into how you knew that friendship. And I think it's like, we knew kids like that growing up, that you're like, oh, well, maybe this kid had some things going on that were hard for him to talk about, and that's how he kind of like acted out to deal with those things. This is now a psychology podcast about the psychology of movies.
The psychology of the characters featured in Stand By Me. Since we're talking about psychology, we can get into the psychology of one of my other favorite parts. That's Kiefer Sutherland, particularly when he first meets up with when he runs into Gordy and Chris on the street, and he takes Gordy's hat, and it's like you hate him instantly, right? So that was good. It's a good way to make somebody hate your character, is to take something that has deep meaning for Gordy and just treat it as frivolous. And he didn't even want the hat. He gave it to his henchman, right? So he just did it because he could. And so, and I think in the later interviews when they talked about that part, they said that basically Gordy never sees the hat again, and the hat was probably thrown away, just treating something precious as trivial. So that was impactful. And the other thing was that I did not realize it, but apparently this is the first time I ever heard somebody use the phrase candy ass. Like, I'm thinking that the first time I heard it was when The Rock says it, but obviously not. This is the first time ever, because I saw this movie before I saw the Rock in wrestling.
Yeah.
So that's where that phrase comes from. But
maybe The Rock was a big Stand By Me fan.
Yeah.
Maybe that's
or maybe that was just a saying that a particular group of people said, because I had never heard it before. Like, I used to think it came from wrestling, but now I know I heard it when I watched Stand By Me. But I love that word. But Kiefer Sutherland, his performance is just cruel and menacing, and just like, and also charismatic, because he has his whole crew following him, and it's like he doesn't have to tell people twice to do something if he wants them to do something. But also not somebody that you like, especially if you were a little kid, not somebody you want to hang around. But he played that role, and he played it well.
Terrifying. He is terrifying. He is a terrifying bully. And like, this is much like how similar in time we were talking about leeches, Rambo First Blood Part 2, and this came out. This is pretty close to when the Lost Boys come out. So Kiefer Sutherland is just establishing himself as terrifying, just someone you don't want to mess with at all. But man, is he good.
Right. To me, it doesn't seem like that he doesn't like play a different type of character until Young Guns. Young Guns, he was likable. Like he played, his character is so different in Young Guns that you think that, oh, okay, so he's not a bad guy, right?
right. Yeah. Yeah, because even in Flatliners, isn't he kind of like the villainous, like, not villain, but like the one who's like, seems like he's got nefarious plans, or just kind of like goes a little crazy in Flatliners. Like, I think it's just kind of like set that he is just a little a little off in that movie. Which, man, that's a good movie. I need to go back and watch too. I haven't seen that one, the original Flatliners, in quite a while. I won't watch the remake ever again. I think I'm good of that one.
I never actually seen Flatliners, but I did watch Phone Booth. And Phone Booth, he was, you only hear his voice, but super menacing in Phone Booth, just digging deep into that menace that he is. So he can be both menacing and charitable, and I think he kind of blends those characters when he's in 24, right?
Yep.
So you
don't want to mess with Jack Bauer, but if you're on Jack Bauer's good side, you're gonna be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of my favorite parts, did you say Yeah, you did say what your next
Yeah,
favorite part was already. Okay, I this is why I number them because I easily lose track. So
sure.
the next part, I guess is the third part now, is the train. You had alluded to it earlier,
Yeah.
and I absolutely love that part. It was one of the most impactful parts, the part that I most remember for this movie. Like if somebody mentions Stand By Me, the thing that I remember is like a giant train chasing down two
Mhm.
little boys. And that was it did everything right. It raised the tension. It like put them in actual danger in that, they're
Yeah.
just going across like about 20 miles in a fairly rural area where, they're not
Yeah.
going to encounter like brigands or something. The only thing they really have to worry about is the teenage bullies, and they're far away from these teenage bullies. But when that train bears down on them, it's at that point where you think, oh, they could die, right? This is it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I guess the ironic thing is that they're going to find a dead body that had been hit by a train, and they're about to lose that chance to find that dead body because they're about to get hit by a train. So
Yeah. Yeah. Kids, what are you doing?
yeah, just wild. It's like they
Yeah.
and it's not like they could check the train schedule. It seems to me that they should have checked the train schedule before they set out, and then they could accurately predict when the train was going to go over the bridge. But they didn't do that. They was like, let's
Right.
just go. Let's just go across.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a poorly planned outing, guys.
Yeah, just a poorly planned outing. But the visuals on that was super impactful.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That train scene is so great. Like, it's just for such a long time. Like, that was when I would think of Stand By Me. Like, that was the iconic scene from the movie. So I'm glad glad you brought that up because man, it's just it. I would say there's so much about this movie that defines what it is. But if you were to take a scene out and show it to somebody, I feel like people would be like, "Oh yeah, that's Stand By Me." Like just by judging from that.
Right. Absolutely.
So good. My next one is The Revenge of Lord Ass Hogan. I love this scene so much. It's so weird because the movie takes this huge detour in that moment. But what I feel like that is doing is establishing just how creative Gordy is, because he gets a chance to tell a story to his friends. And it's like he knows his audience, so he knows what kind of story to tell. And then, but at the end, he's not necessarily willing to like give in to his audience because, like we said earlier, Cheney's like, well, he goes home and kills his dad. No, that's not the story that Gordy wants to tell. But yeah, I just think that is such a fun moment, like just a crazy gross story with gross vomiting effects. I love how people that aren't even in the pie eating contest are vomiting like a purple kind of bile. Like all logic is thrown out the window, but man, it sure is a lot of fun to watch. In high school, I actually for like a speech class would do like a dramatic interpretation of that story. So I would read that story like at competitions and stuff. I didn't get very far, but I really hold The Revenge of Lord Ass Hogan in pretty high esteem because I just think it's what a wonderful dark fantasy for every fat kid. So yeah, love that part.
I definitely would not read that story in any competition.
It's probably why I didn't get very far is because people were listening to it like, why is he doing this?
Did you make the belching sounds too?
Yep, I sure did. And like when it was different people who were belching, I turned like a different direction. Like, oh, this guy threw up. Blah. This guy threw up. Blah.
Man, that's a difficult story to tell. I got to tell you, that scene was unsettling. Like as I was doing this rewatch, I totally forgot
Yeah.
about this, and I was like, oh my god, I am so turned off by this.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. So, and it was wonderful. It was wonderful that he entered the contest, not so that he could win the contest, but to get to the revenge, his revenge on everybody that had ever like made fun of him or looked down on him and all of these things. And I was like, this is just a well-crafted story from, I guess, a 12-year-old. So that's, and it's like, it's a story that a 12-year-old would tell if he was really good at telling stories. So yeah, that was fantastic. And then another interesting thing is that like his audience had issues with it. So you mentioned that Teddy, he was like, did he kill his dad? And Courtney was like, no. And then you had Vern, who was like, how much did it cost? Did it cost any money to get into the fighting contest? It's like, that was his hang up. It's like, he needed to know this.
And Gordon just wants to be in a fighting contest.
I think so, yeah. And Gordy was like, no, they got it for free. And then he was like, oh, then it's a great story. It's a great story. It was like, that was his big hang up. Like he needed to know that getting into the contest was free. And that's fascinating. Vern is a fascinating character.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is.
Yeah, his favorite food is like, I think he said cherry flavored Pez. And he was really harping on that. So you touched on one of my favorite parts, was the leeches. So let me skip to, let me see, what do I have here? I'm going to just skip to the last one I have. And I don't even know what I wrote. I'm looking at it and I'm confused. It's like, what did I scribble? I'm making notes as I watch the movie. And so I'm making notes in the dark. So a lot of times, it's wild, but I think it's the kind of reflection that Gordy has. So you had Ray Bauer. Ray Bauer was the kid that they found at the end of their journey. That's who they were looking for. And it's kind of a reflection on Gordy's brother's death. So in a whole, it's like the whole movie is kind of have this underlying theme of Gordy dealing with his brother's death. So you had his father kind of looking at him like he imagined his father telling him that it should have been him that died instead of his brother. So that follows him throughout the movie. And as they get closer to the body, it weighs on him heavier and heavier. And when they finally get to the body, he realizes that, they should not be trying to like get fame off of this dead body. So he makes the call where they make an anonymous call to police officers and tell them where the body is. So that was that was like really impactful for me. The kind of like the overall theme of Gordy's journey from like going from his hometown, going like on this long journey with his friends, discovering who he is, discovering who his friends are, and then getting to the dead body and basically finding out who he is from that experience. So yeah, that was it was all about his father rejecting him and the loss of his brother and him coming to terms with that. So yeah, that was pretty powerful for me.
Yeah, this is a super emotional movie, and it's like it sneaks up on you because it seems like these are these four kids who are just having a good time, like these four best friends who joke with each other and all this stuff, and they go on this journey to find a dead body, and that makes it sound like it's going to be kind of terrifying when it gets to the end. And they have the encounter with the bully at the end, but the real thing that stands out about that scene is Gordy's kind of like this like emotional release, this cleansing of everything he's been dealing with, like the impact of grief, the impact of like how he's treated by his father. Like it's really powerful, and I think it does. It totally sneaks up on you and just leaves this really super resonant moment there. So yeah, that's a great Great scene, and it's funny. Like I'm glad that you call it a great scene for that moment instead of just like, oh, they finally they finally found the body. Well, yeah, but it's how they react to finding the body that makes it really powerful. So yeah, great moment.
Yeah. And the weird thing is that I think they were going to, I guess, bring the body to the authorities. And I'm like, really? After that journey, you're going to carry this body? It's like, where are you going to carry? Are you going to carry it to the town that you're already in, or are you going to carry it all the way back to, what was the name of the, Creek? Morgan? No.
Castle Rock.
Castle Rock, yeah. You're going to take it all the way back to Castle Rock. Now, in this movie, it's funny because it's set in Castle Rock, Idaho or Arkansas or something like
Oregon.
that. Yeah, but that's not the Castle Rock that Stephen King was talking about.
Yep. But it's in Maine for some reason.
Right. Are there any other parts that you wanted to take note of, talk about, or any of your favorite parts that you wanted to say that was impactful to you? Yeah.
So my last one is it's just basically the last lines of the movie where Gordy's writing the story, and he talks about how it's like, I've never had any friends in my life. And I'm paraphrasing because I can't remember the exact quote, but it's like he never had any friends in his life like the friends he had when he was 12. And then the kicker is, but have any people in this world had the friends throughout the rest of our lives that we but then the friends that we bonded with when we were kids? And I think about that and I'm like, man, like I moved around a lot as a little kid. Like I would be in place to place, and it's like I'd have all these friendships that like, stopped and started, and it just, they didn't last as long as you feel like they would in the moment. But man, like there is a carefree feeling to the friendship that you make when you're a little kid, where it's like you've got somebody who you get along with, and it's like that is the greatest thing in the world. All that matters. And it's like you don't judge each other, you just enjoy each other. And like I look back now, like I'm 43 years old, and I look back on the friendship that I had when I was younger. Like there are friends from high school that I'm still really close with, and that's probably as far back as it goes for me. So high school and middle school. But like I think back about the friends that I made when I was a kid, and it's like while I guess I don't have the history with those friendships because they only lasted a certain amount of time, like it's like these are core memories to me of like going to do certain things with these kids and just being happy, like being so happy and so content. That it's just this movie is one where I feel like you can watch in various stages of your life and it hits a little bit differently each time. And for me, like that ending there really, really summed it up, where it's like, you look back at these people who you've encountered in your life, and they mean something to you, whether you think about it on a regular basis or not. So yeah, that was a scene for me that was really, really good, really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And then his kids come out and he plays with his kids a little bit. Mm-hmm. It is like and it's kind of like, it was a nice bookend to the movie, because early in the movie, you see he's actually going to Chris's funeral, which is what's causing this reminiscence of his core memory. And it's I'm kind of envious of that, because there were, like, I didn't move around a whole lot, and so I have had friends I remember that I used to have friends in like elementary school, and then I'd have some friends in high school, but I don't remember most of them now. And I think that's a shame. Yeah. I didn't like really maintain contact with them all that much, because like after I graduated, I really started moving around a lot, so wasn't able to maintain those ties. And then Facebook came along, and I sort of reconnected with some of them, but it's kind of hard to reconnect. And so, didn't like really maintain those ties through social media or anything like that. And then it's hard to make new friends, right? Yeah. So Drake has a song called "No New Friends," and I kind of feel like that some kind of way. I mean, you'll make friends, but the bonds really aren't as strong as when you were growing up. So yeah, you're right about that. Good call. Good observation.
It's a sad observation though, but man, yeah, it really resonated this time.
Right, absolutely. So we are going to continue right along to the next segment. All right, we're here with the Trivia Top 10. I scoured the internet, really mainly just IMDb, and found some interesting tidbits of trivia. So if you could start us off with the trivia and let the audience know what they could learn from watching Stand By Me.
Yeah. So after the director, Rob Reiner, screened the movie for Stephen King, he noticed that King was visibly shaking and wasn't speaking. He left the room, and upon his return, he told Reiner that the movie was the best adaptation of his work he had ever seen.
Yeah.
That's glowing praise. That's really glowing praise.
Right. Because he has seen some absolute, well, in his opinion, absolute turds, right? Because there was some adaptations that were really good that he didn't like, but the audience liked. Yeah. And then there were some that were just god awful bad. And not even he knows how to adapt his own work because he's not a filmmaker. So he doesn't understand that, telling stories on film is way different than telling stories in a book. But this one is definitely one of the stellar ones. And there are really very few projects that can top Stand By Me.
Yeah.
So up next is, in a recent interview on the Talk TV show, Kiefer Sutherland refuted the claims that he would pick on or bully Wil Wheaton, River Phoenix, Corey Feldman, and Jerry O'Connell. He said that that wasn't his process as an actor, and that's not who he wanted to be as a person. O'Connell, one of the co-hosts of the talk, agreed that there was no bullying on the set. And that's interesting because in one of the trivia, it still has this on IMDb trivia that he did some bullying to stay in character, but apparently that's not what happened.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
I would say good that he was a good, a decent dude. And good of Jerry O'Connell to kind of stick up for him a little bit too, because man, like as terrifying as he is in this movie, I would like to think that you could separate character from person, and he's actually decent to the other kids in this movie.
Well, the thing is that, some actors are method actors. Well, I don't want to say, I think that the thing is that all actors are using a little bit of the method. They kind of have to get through some scenes. But then some actors, they take it a little too far. They want to stay in character. And if their character happens to be a jerk, then they're hard to be around. So, so that's the thing about it. And so, like Kiefer Sutherland says, that's not his process. He's not going to stay in character and be that way. And but in that same interview, Jerry O'Connell says that he was terrified of Sutherland. He said he was so scared. One of the things was that because they didn't have really many scenes together. It was really just that, especially O'Connell and Sutherland. The only time they ever encountered each other in the movie was at the end of the movie, and then the other time he encountered I'm forgetting people, Wil Wheaton and River Phoenix. He's encountered them in one scene, but most of his scenes were with his gang. So he really can't even give an opinion on what all of the actors were like or what it was like working with them. So but O'Connell was he said that, to him, Sutherland was somebody who was 40 years old. Sutherland was only 17 when he made that movie. But when you're a little kid, everybody looks like an adult, right?
Yep.
So that was interesting.
Nice. Another fact, River Phoenix, Corey Feldman, Wil Wheaton, and Jerry O'Connell got into a lot of mischief in the hotel they were staying at during filming. This included throwing all the poolside furniture into the pool, Wheaton fixing video games in the lobby so they could play them for free, and Phoenix, spurred on by the other boys, unknowingly covering Kiefer Sutherland's car in mud, only discovering whose car it was when Sutherland confronted a scared and nervous Phoenix about it later. Listen, that's not bullying. That's just come up.
That's more like, don't do that to my car. Don't do that to my car, dude. Right?
Right. That's what we like to call now, F around and find out.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I think the rumors may have started from this one incident. Nobody I've seen so far has confirmed or denied this incident. But if this incident did indeed happen, that's probably where the bullying rumors come from. But I guess they started it.
But man, can you imagine that? Like these four kids just like being kids at a hotel, just tearing things up.
Yeah, just four kids being terrorists. So the next fun fact, in the campfire scene in which Chris breaks down, Rob Reiner was sure River Phoenix could do better. He asked him to think of a time in his own life when an adult had let him down and use it in the scene, which Phoenix did. Upset and crying, he had to be comforted by the director afterwards. The result of Phoenix's exercise is the scene that ended up in the final cut. See, and that's what you do as a director. That's what it means to bring out the best performances in your actor. And that is also the method. That's the method when you find something in your own life and you bring that emotion from that experience and you bring it into your performance. That's what it's meant when people talk about method acting. And it, as we saw, it worked beautifully. So he was really upset in that scene. He was really crying and they had to calm him down. So that's fascinating.
Yeah. Well done. And I just, for me, like as someone who's done, theater work and stuff like that too, it's nice to have a director that coaches the actor to get there and then coaches them afterwards to help them like get out of that emotional spot, because it can be hard to trudge up, especially for a kid, to kind of trudge up memories that make you unhappy, and then you have to just kind of sit in them. Big kudos to Rob Reiner for being like, hey, I'm gonna take care of you after we work through this scene too.
Well, first he had to get him there, and then he had to get him out.
Right. Like, by the way, I'm going to bring up all these bad memories, but don't worry, I'll give you a hug.
Right.
The next one, Kiefer Sutherland claimed in an interview that in one of the locations of the film, a Renaissance fair was being held, and the cast and crew attended and bought some cookies. Unfortunately, the cookies turned out to be laced with pot, and 2 hours later, the crew found Jerry O'Connell high and crying somewhere in the park.
He got that good.
Oh, man. I don't know what I would do if I were like 12 years old and got high for the first time at 12 years old. I probably would be crying in a park somewhere too. I'm glad it was much later in life.
I think that he didn't know, right? And so he wasn't prepared for it, right? So, and plus he's young. These are probably doses for an adult, and he gave it to a 12-year-old. Plus, they're cookies. So you're going to eat more than one. Usually with these types of cookies, you maybe eat half of one or just one. This dude probably had 3 or 4 cookies, and it's way more than his tiny little body could handle. So yeah, that's wild.
So good.
Up next, in an interview by Stephen King, in the special feature sections of the DVD, he reveals that the scene with the leeches, which is straight from his novella, actually did happen to him when he was a child. Just reading about it, give me the willies.
Nope. Nope. Never. Nope.
No, ma'am.
Nope.
It's like, no, sir. No, thank you.
None of that. Nope. That's all I can say. Nope. I will not ever. No, thank you. None of that.
I refuse to partake.
God. I would. I mean, I guess I understand why he writes horror novels. I would be traumatized for life. Like, it's just completely messed up forever. Man. Kind of going along with that, the pond that the boys fall into was a man-made pool because the crew wanted them to be safe and secure and did not want to put them in a real pond because they did not know what would be in it. However, Corey Feldman stated in an interview that the joke of the whole thing was the pool was built, buried, and filled with water in the beginning of June. And by the time they got to film the scene, it was the end of August. So it had been out in the woods for 3 months, and they did not know what was in it anyway.
Might as well had just found a natural pool. Like, you wasted all that money. I guess in building your own pool, you know where the bottom is. I think that's going, and it's a hard bottom. It's not like a soft bottom. So like, you might not know what living things are in the pool, but you do know where the bottom of the pool is. So, you know, I guess, you know, it's not a total waste. So up next, in the shot where Gordy and Vern are running towards the camera with the train right behind them, the train was actually at a far end of the trestle with the two actors on the opposite end. The crew used a 600 millimeter long focus lens that, when shot at the telephoto end, compressed the image so much that it made it look like the train was right behind them. It is a very impressive shot, because it's like the train absolutely fills the screen, and it looks like it's running down ants, and it looks like they're right in front of the train.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. Like, I love how I love camera tricks. Like, I just think that's super cool. Like, anything where a director can like do these wild things just by the magic of an actual camera. Like, that's super impressive. So knowing that it was how they filmed that, man. Because, like, I feel like you put these kids in danger, but no, they're fine.
Yeah,
they're okay. Fine. Don't worry about them. It's just a camera thing.
Yeah. And then the sound effects, I think that works the scene too. That does a lot to bring life to that scene, because it's like the train just gets louder and louder, and the terror on the kids' faces. That the actors are doing work, right? And it's funny too, because when Vern first gets on the track, he's like crawling on the tracks because he doesn't want to. He's afraid that he's going to slip through the planks, and then when the train comes, they have to pull him up. And then he was like, "No, just let me go." It's like, you better come on. It's like they could have been across the tracks had he got up and started running earlier, but he was so afraid. And then Gordy gets him up. They both start running, and miraculously, he's able to run across the planks of the track without actually getting his leg stuck in between the planks, which would have certainly killed him.
Oh yeah. Those kids would be gone.
Yeah, at least one of those kids would be gone. But yeah, that was an impressive piece of camera work right there.
Yeah, you know what I'm discovering about this rewatch and discussing it is that Vern really brought the group down. Like, Vern really was holding this group back from fulfilling their potential. Not because he was a fat kid, just because he was kind of a pain.
Yeah, he's kind of a pain.
The next one, this is pretty good. Sean Astin said he auditioned for the role of Chris right after River Phoenix had done his audition. When Astin walked into the room, he said he knew that he had no chance because he saw the filmmakers were choked up and holding back tears, meaning Phoenix had just nailed his audition. Astin said he was equally impressed by Phoenix's performance when he saw the film and agreed that Phoenix was the right actor for the part. Yeah, it's tough to imagine anyone else in that part. But yeah, I feel like when you audition for a part, you walk in and people are still crying from the previous audition. Then you're like, well, what do I do?
Yeah, it's like the people are like, they're dapping their eyes, they're dapping the tears from their eyes. Like, all right, come on in, kid. You can sit for your audition, kid. Come on. Yeah.
Give us just a second. We're ready for you. Just hold on.
Yeah. So, but I remember Sean Astin from Toy Soldiers, and he was great in that one. So, he probably would have did it a fair job in Stand By Me. But
Oh,
yeah, and he's had a fantastic career, and most
mhm.
people know him as Samwise Gamgee. Probably one of the greatest moments in filming, and,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
one of the greatest moments in his career, actually. And then there's he was able to get like he wasn't in Stand By Me, but he did act with Kiefer Sutherland in 24, and he's been in
yeah,
just a whole bunch of projects. So yeah, he's a good guy.
yeah, yep, yep.
So finally, the last bit of trivia we have English is. I promise you, it's my first language. So, so during a 2016 oral history of this film in the trade publication Variety, Jerry O'Connell said that it was not until after he had already been dating Rebecca Rosamond, who had become his wife for many months, that he had learned that she had been a devoted fan of the movie as a child, and she wasn't the one to tell him. O'Connell said, "I'm married to Rebecca Rosamond, a beautiful woman. She's way out of my league, a million times out of my league. About 3 months into dating, my wife who's from Berkeley, and I went up there to meet her high school friends, and we got a little drunk, and her high school best friend said to me, Stand By Me is Rebecca's favorite movie of all time. She had posters all over her room growing up, and she never told me that." And so I think that's just adorable. That's
Oh,
super adorable.
that's super cute.
And I don't think that she ever imagined that she'd be marrying the fat kid from Stand By Me. She
No,
just probably didn't imagine it. And
yeah,
but she loved the movie so much that
yeah,
that's who she ended up marrying. And what's interesting is that he didn't stay that way for long. Kiefer
yeah,
Sutherland, in an interview that I mentioned earlier, he said like he kind of met up with Jerry O'Connell like 10 years after making that movie. They were walking down the street. Somebody he was with saying, "Ooh, look, there's Jerry O'Connell. Why don't you go over and say hi?" And he looked at the dude and was like, that's not him. That's not Jerry. And he was like, "Yeah, that's him." It's like, he had to be convinced. He walked on over and it was like, "Yeah, it was good to see you again. Great to see you." And it's like, so it really was Jerry O'Connell. And he walked
oh wow.
away. He walked away and he was like, "That guy has a much better trainer than I have."
Jerry O'Connell is put together.
Yeah, he's still in great shape. He also voices the character of Ransom on this show called Star Trek. What's it called? The Deep? Nope, not Deep. Lower Decks. It's called Star Trek Lower Decks.
Yeah,
It's an animated
sure.
show, and he plays the second officer. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what? He could probably play that character in real life.
Yeah.
Like he's
Oh man.
still in pretty good shape. I think his actual age, he's probably older than Ransom, but even behind all of that, he could still do it. And then his wife, she is a main character on another Star Trek show called Strange New Worlds. So
Oh,
that's a great coincidence, I think.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, she's great. I would say probably a lot of people remember her for playing Mystique in the original X-Men movies. For me, listen, I feel bad saying this, but I remember her as a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model in the 90s. Like, that was where I think I had my first experience with Rebecca Romaine, because I was, you're a kid.
Yeah, I think
you remember these things.
I think that's what she was known for. She was known for that. She was a model, so she was known for that before she was on the X-Men. So I don't even think that she had anything like that was real big before the X-Men. Maybe she dabbled in acting, but modeling was her big gig. And then she got the part of Mystique, and then it was off to the races.
Yep. She's been in quite a few things since. So good for her.
Absolutely.
Good for him. What a cute couple.
Yeah. They are a cute couple. So that's it for the trivia. And now we're going to talk about what the critics thought. All right. So we have the critics' thoughts. We're going to see what's on their mind. The critics gave it a 92%. The audience has it at a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes. So extremely popular. IMDb Reviews has it at an 8.1 out of 10. So just just a well-loved movie.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just making sure I actually have the correct information here because I did do 2 podcasts today and I can easily get it messed up. But I think I have the correct stuff here. It's correctly edited. So the first critic we're going to talk about is Carrie Rickey from the Philadelphia Inquirer. Carrie wrote, "Stand By Me is a small, quiet film that walks tall and resonates long after." And yeah, we're talking about it almost 30 years later, or more than 30 years later. It's been a long time since the movie came out, and I'm not good at math, but it's been a long time, and we still talking about the parts that had impacted us. So Carrie has a right of it. Yeah. Up next is Dave Kerr from Chicago Tribune. They wrote, "Stand By Me is a film of honorable ambitions, severely compromised by a creeping showbiz phoniness." And I don't know what's going on with Dave. I don't agree with the sentiment. Well, I don't understand what the creepy showbiz phoniness is. I don't know where he's getting that from. Yeah. I think this is a man who he's watching the movie and he doesn't want to feel feelings. You know the type, the type that doesn't want to, he thinks that when people express emotions that they're not being authentic. I think that's what's going on here. I don't know where he's coming from, but I disagree with the sentiment.
Tenfold. Sheila Benson of the Los Angeles Times says, "It stands sweet and strong, ribald, outrageous, and funny, like its heroes themselves. A bit gamey around the edges, perhaps, but pure and fine clear through. It's one of those treasures absolutely not to be missed. 100%. Definitely a treasure. Yeah, just great. And I get it. I think, a bit gamey around the edges. Yeah, there might be a little bit of like fluff there, but I also think that, for a movie that's under an hour and a half long, like this movie cooks. Like it uses every moment to the utmost potential. But yeah, it's great. Pat Graham. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying, I'll bet my bottom dollar that the grainy part for Sheila was the short story that Gordy told.
Yeah. She just doesn't get it. She just doesn't get it. It was great. It was so great. Pat Graham of the Chicago Reader, however, says Reiner seems lost in his own cinematic wilderness, buttoned down, almost afraid to move. I don't know what movie Pat Graham watched, because I feel like this movie is pretty bold. Like there are some moments like you're putting kids in harm's way, tackling some very adult themes. So I'm not sure what Pat was watching here.
Right.
So
I guess he wanted a movie where one of the teens actually did commit suicide and they had to deal with that.
Yeah.
And it's like, and they never get to the body, or maybe maybe Teddy goes crazy and or actually. Not Teddy, maybe Gordy at the end of the movie. Maybe he shoots one of the bullies. Yeah. Maybe that is what he was going for. That would have made Pat would have thought this was a perfect movie if that had happened. But I don't know what Pat's going for either, but I thought this was a great movie. And the thing about it was like, I feel like it's more realistic that none of the more bolder things happen because those things don't really happen in real life. But just that a group of kids would walk 20 miles, that's remarkable to me. That they walked a bunch and then they spent the night overnight in the woods. That's not a normal experience, right?
Right.
That's not something I ever did. Not as a child.
No.
That's a negative. And they basically had to lie to their parents in order to go on this excursion. But still, that's an incredible voyage that they went on. And to say that, that it's buttoned down or that Reiner was afraid to move, like I don't get it. But I feel like he watched a different movie. Or maybe he was just in a bad place at the time that he watched the movie.
Yeah. Pat, it's been 30 years. Go back and watch Stand By Me.
Right. If you're still alive. So finally, Stand By Me is, as of this recording, available on streaming. That's it for today. I'm going to try something different next week. I usually cover the movies that I've seen and loved growing up, but in the next episode, I'm going to talk about a movie that I've been curious about, but I've never seen. So join me next week as we talk about Event Horizon. It's going to be a whole new... I know that it's been a well-regarded and well-talked about movie, but I've never seen it, so I want to give it a shot. I've been curious about it for a long time.
Exciting.
You can follow us on Twitter, TikTok, Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Backlit Cinema. And you can contact us with any questions, comments, or suggestions at fanmail@backlitcinema.com. Please leave a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify if you are so inclined. That would... You know what? Here's the thing about asking for reviews. They don't actually help you in the rankings over at Apple, but what it just makes me feel good. I just want your help. I got low self-esteem. I need you to help me build myself up. Help a fella out. Leave a review to build his self-esteem. Why don't you? And then, I get some and I'll read them on the show. Andy, do you have any additional plugs?
Yeah, I mean, again, the same thing. Just check out podcasts. You know where to find podcasts. Check out social media. But I would also say too, if you want to start a conversation or have any interest in being a guest on my show, please send an email to fatdudedigsflicks@gmail.com. I'm always looking for new guests. I like having conversations. I like getting to know people, and I like getting to talk about movies that we love. So. Please send an email my way. It'd be fun to have you on the show. And you too, Zoe. I'm going to have you on the show.
I would be honored. I can't wait.
Oh. Heck yeah.
So one last time, if you like this show, then please help us grow by spreading the word about Backlit Cinema, the podcast. Believe me, it matters. And I know that you've enjoyed our guest, Andy Heller. So please give a listen to the Fat Dudes Digs Flicks podcast. I've been Zoe Richardson. Be safe, share a movie from yesteryear with your family, hug your loved ones, and if you're going to be anything, be outstanding.